morning, everyone. We welcome you to our Saturday morning Bible study. Today is June 10th, 2017, and we are recording at the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent in Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. And this morning, our moderator is Mike from New York. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Starting with a reading. Mrs. Eddy once stated that the 91st Psalm would heal anything. It contains a mighty healing power that has blessed and helped people throughout the ages. That's from the 91st Psalm, a pamphlet by Doris White Evans, and that was her spiritual interpretation thereof.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else on that, or shall we go to the first question?
Well, it showed what an enlightened state of thought was existent at the time of David or whoever wrote that psalm. That the power of God was very well understood by some people.
Yeah, and you've read in, what is it, A Century of Christian Science Healing, references to the 91st Psalm. Many times soldiers were protected by working with this psalm. There used to be these little Bibles in Science and Health. I used to have one, that tiny little ones you could carry in your pocket, really. I think they were meant for the military or anyone else who wanted to keep your Bible in Science and Health in your purse or whatever. Anyway, it certainly was inspired all these years. This truth has blessed and helped so many people.
Yeah, the 91st Psalm has been incredibly useful for me, even when I didn't understand, the spiritual understanding of it. Just the fact that God is present. Just the basic understanding of it has been very helpful. We were made to learn it as children, so I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to commit to memory.
A neighbor couple of years ago had both the husband and wife had accidents, and they would talk to them about Christian Science, but when they call me up with a trip to the emergency room on an issue, I would tell them to work with the 91st Psalm, and not sure how much they believed in what I said, but I am sure that the 91st Psalm is what helped carry them through.
Yeah, thank you.
I was amazed I started paying attention to some of the things Mrs. Eddy writes and how much she blends it in all her writings, the 91st Psalm, and many of her ideas. But in prose work she writes, these two words in Scripture suggest the sweetest similes to be found in any language, rock and feathers. Upon this rock I will build my church. He shall cover thee with his feathers. How blessed it is to think of you as beneath the shadow of the great rock in a weary land, safe in his strength, building on his foundation, and covered from the devourer by divine protection and affection. She has this all through her writings, and it's just amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you, Linda. Okay.
All right. And the first question goes back to last week's wonderful Bible study. 1. Explain each armor from Ephesians 6:17. A. Helmet of salvation.
It can mean the protection of one's thought, the head. saw that it was the last piece of armor to go on, and it was the final act of readiness to protect the thinking.
Thank you.
This is the first area of attack is the head, so we need to protect it.
Thank you. It was the command center, the thoughts for the command.
Well, in today's day and age where there's so much effort and attention placed on protecting physical things, how much people give consideration to their thinking, and that it needs to be defended. I think we know from Christian Science that nothing ever happens unless it is in thought first. So much better to protect the thinking, keep it aligned with God. How much would be spared and how much gain doing so.
To go along with that, because it's the helmet of salvation, that we would be spared if it's our act of saving, and that we put on that preservation from destruction, which then gives you, this is from a commentary, the everlasting happiness.
Yeah, thank you. That's an important point. Helmet of salvation. So what is salvation? Saving grace of God.
Deliverance.
I read too that this is the first one that it says, it doesn't say to put on the helmet, it says to take the helmet. What would be the difference?
I would think of this as to take, meaning to know, that I reflect that all-knowing mind is what comes to me with that.
Thank you.
It could
Take
also
is a
be,
willing. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Solar.
To take is actually involves action. You are taking rather than just mindlessly putting it on. You are consciously taking something and you're going to make it part of you.
Thank you. Very good. So it's an action of receiving, taking, a receptivity.
Also, you could think of it as all of the prior requirements, putting on things that we have to do to recognize and acknowledge God's power and presence in our relationship to God. And if we are faithful in doing that, the result is that we are given our salvation. Our salvation is in doing those things. And if we will take that salvation and keep it in our consciousness forever and ever and ever, then we will have something worth living for.
We'll have freedom. Salvation is freedom too. I mean, freedom from wrong thinking. I mean, freedom to live with God.
Yeah, but it comes with a price, doesn't it? And if we earn it,
Yeah, we have to learn to protect our thought and to live it.
if we earn it, it's ours for the taking.
Then from Gary's explanation, if we have that salvation, then we don't need to put on a physical helmet because we won't be in that situation.
It is our helmet.
It is itself.
Right. It's a
David-
banana.
David did not use a helmet. Goliath did. the idea of salvation, the saving grace of God, part of that and part of taking that on is your gratitude for it, your extreme gratitude and love for God for giving you this. Because truly, that is one of the things that keep you safe more than anything else, when you are grateful and you love God. Because if you do that, you will naturally repel negative, down-pulling, blasphemous thoughts. Like, I'm not good enough, and I can't do it, and I'm feeling sick. When you're truly grateful for God giving you salvation, His saving grace, amazing grace, it will be a natural repellent. The other thing I read, I think it's very interesting. These Roman helmets, they were so strong and so massive, not even a hammer or a battle axe could break them. They had to put some kind of a spongy thing on the top. I mean, when they put it on, it had the spongy thing so it wouldn't hurt their heads. They were so massive and heavy. And in this kind of warfare, if you didn't have one on, people fought with battle axes, and they'd chop your head off. But with a helmet, they couldn't. It also said it had a large plume on the top, very decorative. They were many of them were very gorgeous, intricate, elaborate. So the point that this commentary was making, again, was the gratitude for the salvation and the total protection that loving God and being grateful for God brings to you. And it says that the helmet of salvation is so Satan can't manipulate your emotions, send signals of disease to your body. It all starts in your head.
Yeah, I was thinking of this as very much like what you've been saying. Everybody's been saying is that it's protection for your thinking. And Matthew Henry in Psalm 91. That's how we started out about Psalm 91. Says, "Wisdom shall keep them from being afraid without cause, and faith shall keep them from being unduly afraid." And, if we do the Father's will, paraphrasing this, we have no reason to fear. So it's protecting our thinking. And I also think that something I was reading in Peter Ross was kind of interesting, too. So you're always talking to yourself, and much of the time it's not carefully. You are saying what is not true. And it goes on that. So it's kind of like you're checking your thoughts. And I think to me that's what's saying a lot about this helmet of salvation. Is that you're checking your thoughts about where your thoughts are. And in the end, that's protecting yourself.
Standing quarter at the door of thought. And Mrs. Eddy says in the article what our leader says in Miscellany, when your thoughts are so full of life, truth, and love, that how can evil get in? It can't. That's your helmet.
She also says right thought is an impervious armor.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There is a whole gallery at the Metropolitan Museum dedicated to different armors of different countries, and what's really striking is that the helmet, can be, like you have said, so elaborate, and in different countries in the past that had been like most focal point of a warrior's outfit. There's one about, I believe it's Asian from Japan, that is so profuse in so, looks almost so impenetrable. And it just shows that, the head was giving a lot of importance and was such a vital point.
Thank you.
Also, I think in addition to the protection or prevention, it's also the head or mind will also make us know what we need to know at any time. And that's another form of protection, knowing what is right, what to do.
Absolutely. Thank you. When you're protected from the evil thoughts, you're free to receive the thoughts of God. Also, again, it goes back to being grateful and loving your Father. Those thoughts will pour into you, and they will repel the other thoughts. That's your helmet. It's radiation versus absorption. And you know it. When you let one little lousy thought in and you go with it, and then pretty soon it brings all its friends, and pretty soon you don't know which end is up. So make this practical. This isn't just something we talk about. This is something you think about and use during the week. Be a David. His thoughts were so full of love and for God and gratitude and caring for saving his people, unselfish purpose. He had that armor on naturally, even though he was hardly just had probably a little loincloth on. And meeting this big old Goliath covered with heavy armor. And he defeated him, as we always will.
So it's really a part of the praying without ceasing too, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Sure is.
That's what makes the armor so impenetrable, so thick, because it doesn't find any way it can get to you when you're praying without ceasing. If you take it off and let down, well, then it'll have a field day. That beautiful hymn I love. Is it hymn number 6? Anyway, about the Christian armor. Take it on, watch and pray.
And let's remember what Paul is referring to in this letter to the Ephesians. He's talking about standing against the wiles of the devil, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This girding our loins with truth, putting on the breastplate of righteousness, feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, shield of faith. This is the discipline of our thought that provides us with the salvation that we're talking about. This is what keeps us from being mesmerized, keeps us from being influenced by the propaganda that is all around us, keeps us from being influenced erroneously, because that is the battle. It's not against people, against the false beliefs that are trying to enslave people around the world.
Thank you. Well said.
In a way, Mrs. Eddy stopped telling us that daily defense to make sure that we have, we set off with the right thought. And as Gary, you're saying, disciplining your thoughts, so annoyances and frustration and discouragement and, sense of fatigue and all those things don't bring our thought down.
Absolutely. And if you're experiencing those, remember you don't have your helmet on. Get it on. Anyone else? Hey, Mike. Who is it?
This is Suzanne.
Oh, hi, Suzanne.
Hi. I was just thinking of, I just read the Devil's Auction again about how the tool that the devil wouldn't sell was the tool of discouragement.
Yeah.
All the other ones he sold. And I remember Mrs. Evans said, gratitude keeps you safe. And when I read that, the Devil's Auction, it said that if you're grateful, it keeps you from being discouraged. And
Absolutely.
I just thought that was it's so simple, and yet it can elude us. We just always have to be alert to what's going on in our thinking.
Sincere gratitude is an instant connection to God, and it's an impervious armor. Absolutely it is. And when all these thoughts are coming, you can know darn well you are not grateful. You've listened to that devil say, oh, I'll never get out of this situation, and nothing good's ever happened in my life, and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and it's, if you think about it, compared to psychology and going and talking over your troubles with someone week after week after week, it's so complicated and without any kind of solution. But if you're just grateful, I love the simplicity in the Bible. You don't have to get into a lot of stuff. It's just cut it to the simplest thing. It's just, are you grateful for being alive? Are you grateful for the good in your life today? Connect with God, and it becomes this incredible protection. And that's what I love to reach out to people, tell them about these simple truths, these simple laws of the universe, to encourage them, and then it's a good starting point.
That's why psychiatry, as I've learned, has descended into being not really dealing with people's thoughts or helping them by talking with them. It's only by prescribing the drugs, which actually don't do any good.
Very interesting.
It's well known that that's what's happened in psychological treatment now. They may sit with you for a while, but all they want to do is prescribe a drug for you because they believe that's what's going to work.
Why Suzanne's comment was so important. So let's get back onto what is true. Thank you, Suzanne, because gratitude and discouragement can't really exist at the same time in the same thought, can they?
Possible.
It's impossible. That's why it's important to love your neighbor as yourself. Because love and fear cannot exist at the same time, in the same mind. That's why these are all such a strong defense against the wiles of the devil.
And in science, you learn that in truth there is nothing to defend yourself from, because all is infinite mind and is infinite manifestation. Therefore, whatever you're fearing, you are seeing incorrectly. And that's the ultimate treatment. Go ahead, Fawn.
Yeah, I was thinking that, this sense that, this is boring, I read it every day, I've been reading the lesson every day, that can also come in addition to, the impatience and all the others. But that's such a subtle one. If you don't take care, then you don't do your lesson, and then before you know it, you're mesmerized all day, and there's a fear and all those things come in. So the sense of waking up and looking forward, being grateful for the lessons, for example, is a protection, really, going the other way.
Thank you. And that goes along, too, with the writing on the forum and expressing your gratitude and finding new and fresh things. When you think you can't, it shows you're being mesmerized. And you shouldn't always leave it up to a few to do it. Everyone is capable. As Eddie says, we can all do more, and we can. To go back to what Suzanne said, she also said when she saw a grateful student, she knew they were safe. I know it in the practice too. I can tell when someone is really grateful, even if they're going through hard times. They're grateful. They're so grateful for what they're learning. They're grateful for the website, which is given absolutely free, changing every day. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, time, money to do this. Some people don't even mention it, they're just thinking about themselves and their problems. No wonder they're miserable.
And I've also learned here to watch my feelings, because if I'm not joyful at all, then I can't really be grateful. Even if I'm not just walking around smiling, maybe I am going through something, but there's a certain level of joy that I will still maintain if I am grateful. So that's something I've learned that's been very helpful to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what the positive expectation is for. You can be going through hell, but if you have a positive expectation that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that there is a good God looking out for you, and that there is a blessing somewhere in this, that will get you through.
In one of the commentaries about that helmet of salvation, it mentioned expectancy of victory in God. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's only Christian Science that gives you that hope and the expectancy of good to get through. I know before coming here, I never really knew how to make a decision or what was right thinking or wrong thinking. I might have known it within the context of my job, but not in life at all. So coming here and learning that there is a clear-cut way to think rightly, and how that then brings purpose and everything else, it's been a wonderful change.
I think the key word there is here, because in the previous Christian Science, it was all very complicated, and as Suzanne points out, the simple truths that are so well taught here that actually block and out the bad and convert your thinking to the good. That's what I've found here, and I am so grateful for that.
I think it was Gilbert Carpenter. He said that love is simple. It's never esoteric or complicated. I like that too.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember years ago, a practitioner gave me this statement from the Bible. It says, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." This was at a time when I was going through some difficulties and really looking for the resolution and the answer. She says, yeah, we're all got things we like to have answered, but there is an answer. Why not open the door that leads the way to it? And that's the joy of the Lord. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And when I took that on, I did find a resolution, whatever was going on.
And you'll notice, if you're feeling weak, you're also feeling depressed. When you're joyful, your strength returns. It's an energizer because it's God working. So they go hand in hand. Joy and strength go hand in hand. Just as gratitude and joy go hand in hand. You cannot be grateful and be depressed. It's impossible. Anyone else? Mike?
Ephesians 6:17b, sword of the Spirit.
Sword of the Spirit. What is that sword of the Spirit?
The
word
of
of
God.
truth
Yes.
to stand up to the error.
Word of God, the word of truth.
There is no matter.
Well, that's truth.
Only spirit.
Yes,
It's our spiritual armor.
it is. All of this is spiritual armor.
So what do you use the sword for?
Getting rid of error.
Yeah, you lop its head off. All of these other things are defensive, aren't they? Girding your loins, putting on your breastplate, getting your shield and all that stuff, putting on your helmet. Those are all to protect you. But none of that does any good if you're not willing to go into battle.
The sword is like to defend yourself, I guess, by using what you know and what you already know to be true to attack the error.
Yeah. Yeah. Here he's saying, defend yourself. Put on all this stuff that is your defense. And then go to battle. Be aggressive with your love for mankind and God. Don't be afraid to destroy error when it comes to you.
What does it mean to be two-edged? A two-edged, because it is a two-edged sword.
Well, cuts both ways.
Right.
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
It decapitates the error and replaces with the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It also sounds a bit like hypocrisy. It cuts both ways.
Excuse me?
What?
Well, you have to be honest about what you're doing. That's what I'm saying.
Most definitely.
Why is that even a question?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
You have to be honest about yourself.
And why are you even questioning?
Why am I questioning? I'm not questioning that.
Your point is,
Well, I think his point is you've got to, in order to use it, you have to have honesty, or you can't use it. Is that what you mean? You can't be two-faced, totally committed to it. Yeah.
You
People
can't
know what
misuse
you're doing.
something because it'll come back and harm you. That's what I was just saying. Like there's two sides of the sword. They'll cut both ways, you know? You're only going to hurt yourself if you're misusing it.
No, that's a good point. Yes, very true. Well, and the other, Mrs. Eddy talks about mental anatomy. This sword you can use on yourself in a good way. Now, actually, how you should be using it. So what does that mean?
Well, you talked before about we have to find our hook. Like pull it back away from God.
Well, it decapitates the error in you,
Thank you.
not just one out there.
Right. That's exactly right. You use it on yourself. If you have a malignant hatred going on, you use the mental anatomy to get rid of it. And you use that sword to cut it out. Cutting it out means just that. Don't let it exist with you. If you do that, you'll never find yourself on an operating table.
I think that's a very big key, is that can be used to slice very accurately, as separating the wheat from the tares and that kind of thing. And Genesis 3 finishes off, he placed at the east end of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. I think that comes back with a two-edged sword that it slices in every way, in every direction. So it's useful in every position that it comes to.
Thank you.
That's actually a very helpful comment, because error is always the same. It's stupid, but it comes in many different faces and forms. And therefore, the two-edged sword is not fooled by whatever one of the various forms it might appear as, but it recognizes the nature of it, and therefore it's destroyed. It doesn't have a chance.
It is the most powerful sword there is. What does it say? That it divides between the joints and marrows.
Jesus was looking that up. For the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of the soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is the discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
Thank you very much. That's just what I wanted. Thank you.
Hebrews 4:12.
Thank you. Look at that. This is the sword. The sword God wields. As his servants, we can wield it too. But I was reading, I think it was Spurgeon, who said only God can give you directions as to how to use it. And I think that was Tom's point, that you can't misuse it. You can't misuse it, or you'll turn and rend yourself. You're a hypocrite, or use it in any way. Other than for the purposes of God. An amazing instrument, something we can think about. You know, very often these movies that I like to watch, they have this sword that comes just when it's needed, you know, and it does wondrous things to get the hero or heroine out of terrible trouble. And so it does the same for us. But too, in the movies, it makes a point: only the person, only the pure in heart. Only the person that owns it can use it. No one else can. If they try, it won't work. So think about it. Do you have a sword of spirit that you use? Aware of it? How to use it? When to use it? It's only used for the purpose of doing good. When it seems to destroy something.
And one of the things that came to me is the idea that it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
You know, error doesn't come at you directly. It tries to sneak up from behind. And the sword, doesn't matter which way you turn around to lop its head off, it'll lop its head off either way. Error can't sneak up against this double-edged sword. It doesn't have a blunt edge.
And Mrs. Eddy has talked about this idea of fear. I think it's in the Blue Book, but she says you take up the sword and you cut its head off, and you do that with the first commandment. That's how you get after the fear. Because anytime you're fearing something, you are having another God beside the one God. That keeps it simple too. That's how you handle it with the first commandment. That's why she loved it so much. And that's the sword that cuts its head off. Commandment. That's the word of God that cuts its head off. That's how you use God's word. Because we've talked about the sword of spirit is God's word. Just Jesus used God's word when he was tempted by the devil.
Because really the cutting off of the head is the, knowing that God is all and evil is nothing.
I was thinking about the word discernment or discerning, and that helps you to see that what is just a false belief versus what's really true. Sometimes it's not easy to do.
Well, that's right. And if you're in that right mind with your armor on, it will be easy to do. It'll be very clear and obvious. Mrs. Eddy would say she could read thoughts just so clearly she couldn't hold it back. Part of demonstration of the one mind. And that's why the more we use it, the more we're aware of it, the better things become. And it's just so counterproductive for people to get into these negative states of mind when they could be doing so much good and be progressing. But you've got to be a fighter. You can't be passive. It's not handed to you on a silver platter. You have to wield it. You can't just look at it and say how pretty it is.
And you can't think of it as a one-edged sword, the sharp edge and the blunt edge. In other words, you can't be bland, or you can't turn your eye against something and try to be principled in other things.
And that's the hypocrisy that Tom was
And
You can't shy away from standing for what's right. If someone is saying very wrong things, you have to have the courage to say no.
Because what will happen if you don't do that?
Well, the error just keeps there, and I mean, it's very wrong of a Christian Scientist to allow that.
Yeah. Pretty soon you won't be able to wield the sword at all.
You won't be able to wield it at all.
But I think it's worse than that, because it would be like watching a bank robbery and knowing who the people were and going home and saying nothing. You become an accessory to the fact.
Absolutely true.
Thank you, Mike. The error will overtake you and use you.
You'll end up in jail.
Either figuratively or literally.
Well, hopefully literally, if that's what one's earned.
Yeah. Well, and remember that two-edged sword is something, well, you know how it is just to use a knife with one sharp edge and the other blunt. Well, if they're both sharp, you've got to be careful with it. You can't just be flying it all around.
And it does take courage to speak up for what's right, but it also doesn't make you very popular. So you have to know that standing up for the truth means people might get really mad at you.
And they will.
But
They may take offense.
Right, and my very close friend of mine and I are this duo in town that she says that people are afraid of us because we speak up for the truth when there is silence all around, because it's the most unpopular thing to do, but we both feel so strongly about it, and I have shared a lot of Christian Science truths with her, including the quote from Mrs. Eddy that honesty is spiritual power. When she heard that, her ears perked up, and that's given her courage to continue to go forth and be unpopular. But it's really helped our town, because you see that when you speak up for what's right, everyone may be against you, but the fact that you've spoken up and that you've given voice to truth, it does good. It in the long term. The fact that you have spoken up at a certain point, and it's in the minutes of a meeting, for instance, and you were the only one who said it, and you feel strongly about what you said, well, it's recorded. And so, history will play out, but standing for the truth, amid the bullets of, shut up, we don't want to hear you. I mean, they literally tell you, please sit down. That's enough. Thank you, ma'am. Because they don't want to hear what's difficult to hear or what's unpopular. But after a while, at first it's scary, but after a while, you've got your sword out and you're just like fearless. It's kind of cool, actually.
Well,
But
that's right.
And that's because it was that truth and honesty that's what deflects all those darts.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why Jesus mentions that in the Beatitudes, doesn't he? In his Sermon on the Mount. It's not only beneficial in the long run, but it's also beneficial immediately to the person who does take the stand. As he says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. It is an immediate blessing when you do take the stand that will often be unpopular.
And you're receiving the spiritual power that Mrs. Eddy talks about. And if you don't, you will forfeit divine help. And that statement in Science and Health has meant a huge amount to me as well. To forfeit divine help, that's a huge penalty for your dishonesty, your hypocrisy, or whatever.
And the reward is in the story of the rich man and Lazarus, because the rich man is suffering at that point, and there's no way out. He can see, but that was the fruits of not being honest and not being forthright and taking that risk of being an accessory to the fact of, the bad fact.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Good life experience.
And you stay with God and He stands with you.
Absolutely.
Exactly. If you speak for God, you're speaking. If you speak for good, you're speaking for God, and there's no greater power than that. So that's it.
I have to say that the teaching in this church gave me the strength to speak up, because I was pretty much in the shadows all my life and didn't have much of a voice. But the simple truth being pointed out by weekly teaching is just what allowed me to have a backbone and start to speak up. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I have to thank the teachers in this church for giving me a backbone.
Someone said that you should have a backbone, not a wishbone. Thank you, Suzanne.
So sometimes there's other people out there that are thinking exactly the same thing you're saying, and they're just so afraid to speak up.
That's true. Yeah.
The amazing thing is that that's really what the majority is. The majority want to do the right thing, but they're too afraid of being run over by Satan, devil, bully, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and that's referred to as spiritual wickedness in high places, isn't it?
And we've been taught here that Era is a coward before the truth. So it's a big bully. It tries to intimidate, but ultimately it is a coward when the truth is spoken. And it wants to shut you up, yes.
And that's exactly how it works. It wants you to think that it actually is the majority, when in fact it's not.
Very good, huh?
So we're finally done with last week.
Doing well.
This is a prayer a commentary wrote about the sword of Spirit, the Word of God. Defend me in times of attack. Comfort me in times of sorrow. Teach me in times of meditation. And prevail against the power of the enemy on behalf of others who need the truth to set them free. Okay, anyone else? Maybe we can start the 91st Psalm.
I'd like to make a suggestion. Linda had suggested that we do half of it this week and half the week after next. And I was just wondering if we could skip to the last question and then do the 91st Psalm as far as we can get the week after next.
Sure, that's a good idea. We just have 10 minutes left. So.
Right, because I think this is so important. How does one develop understanding for the portions of the Bible for which the commentaries don't give a satisfactory explanation? And what made me laugh about this question was that was presented around Friday, and unfortunately I missed Saturday's Bible study, and then when I listened to it and read, don't forget to anoint the shield that's on the carousel, totally answered that question. Well, not totally, but I'm sure there's always to add to it. And what I really got out of that article was that one goes to places in the Bible, and Mrs. Eddy's writings, as has been done so far on this study also, which explains those things that aren't directly handled in the commentaries. It just amazes me that the things that Mrs. Eddy found the most important are the least written about. For example, the 91st Psalm and the Sermon on the Mount and those.
Yeah, I just thought the answer was be an active member of this church, actually.
Well, this is a commentary on commentaries. I've read a number of commentaries, and sometimes when I read them, it just sounds like someone read a verse in the Bible, and they're just talking, you know. So sometimes I wonder if some of these commentaries, and that's how I don't, you know, some of these that we really love, like Matthew Henry and so forth. But there's a lot of commentaries out there. People just write. And sometimes they'll write about one verse, and they write like almost an encyclopedia on that verse. I wonder, what exactly are they saying, you know? It just seems like a lot of words.
I don't believe Mrs. Eddy relied on commentaries.
What did she rely on?
The Bible.
Spiritual sense.
God.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the key of this question
revealed in the Bible, the truth of God.
Yeah, well, Betty gave the right answer. I think the key to this question is satisfactory explanation. What is a satisfactory explanation?
To me, it's what sticks to my heart.
Thank you. But as Tom said, there are a lot of commentaries out there. And if they don't speak to your heart, what's the point?
Well, and the reason why they don't speak to your heart is because if it's not lived, it is just blah, 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 blah. And that's why what's important about these sessions, Saturday and Sunday, is the living of it. Living of it is what is important. Anyone can talk about this stuff or write about it. And as Tom said, they've written volumes. but living it is something else. And only when you live it does it have the clout and the ring and the power of truth. That's in a league of its own. And Mrs. Eddy, of course, we know, lived it through blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why what she says is so powerful. And that is how we interpret it. You start living it, you'll see things that you didn't see before, both in the Bible and in Science and Health. It will be revealed to you. As I said, no one can write about Revelation except Mrs. Eddy, as far as I'm concerned. So, Proctor does a pretty good job, too. Go ahead.
One time I did go to a quote, regular Bible study conducted by a different church at the invitation of someone, and it was so unsatisfying because it was conventional theology in that church, and they were just sort of spouting what that was, and it wasn't any real clear insight.
I have a sub-question. Maybe Linda can answer this one, because it, like the reading that she gave at the beginning of this session, was so on target. How do you always find those wonderful comments, or Mrs. Singletary or Mrs. Roberts? Maybe you guys could tell us how you come across them.
Well, for me, more intuition. Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying intuition, but you go ahead.
No, I mean,
and what's your? I'm sorry, but what's the intuition? Do you just open up a one of the books and there it is, or?
I think it's the consistent thought of God show me, direct me, and that comes with which direction to go. As this is how I work.
That's a better way of explaining
shows me. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's what I would say too.
Helen, I ask always, Father, feed thy sheep. Yeah, and that is, then what would you have them know and learn about you? How can I tell them more about you? And then the other is, I mean, we've had years of reading and studying and praying and using these citations. So they are like within me. And I never get rid of any of my old books because I have them all written down and circled and written in pages turned and referring to them so often. It's just part of me. I rarely, if I want anything found digitally, I ask either Linda or Jeremy to find it. I don't care to do it that way. It's either within me. Thoughts just come. But it is the living it and proving it. You become it. You become it. Felt ye the power of the word. That's what that means. There's no other way to do it. Is that fine?
Yeah.
No, that was Linda. I was just going to share, Luann doesn't have any electronics, and for her Bible study, I just thought it was beautiful. She opened up her prose book and right to the quote that she needed that fit beautifully to the topic. It was just effortless. It was her living prayer.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yes.
God directs. I sincerely believe that.
That goes along with what Mrs. Eddy taught, because she would let the Bible or Science and Health drop open and then read what her eyes lit upon. And that's wonderful.
And explain it to her household.
Yeah. And that will happen, too, if you pray and ask God for an answer. I do that at times, too, and I'll just open to something.
You know, I've I can't remember what now, but in years past I've read some Christian Science articles, and gosh, they seem so overly complicated and almost torturous trying to read and understand. And it actually turns me off from Christian Science. You know, it's almost as whoever's writing is being very pompous, you know, about how smart they are, and that they really understood something in some scientific way, and they're going to explain it to you. And, I wonder if it's more about them than it is trying to get people to understand Christian Science. So I think just trying to understand the Bible and you don't understand it, one way to look at it, don't need to use it in everything, but as Occam's razor. You know, keep it straightforward. Don't try and overcomplicate trying to understand what the verse or the sentence is trying to tell you, or what you can learn from it. But what's the most straightforward way of understanding what you're looking at?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I don't think the Bible was written so that the only people who understand it are people with PhDs in the Bible, is what I'm saying. They're written for everybody.
Absolutely.
And
Tommy,
the
you are so right. I think many of us have had the same experience that you had. I certainly did. There was a time many, many, many years ago that I just stopped reading the Christian Science Journal for that very reason. It was turning me off. And I knew in my heart that it wasn't Christian Science, because I knew that Christian Science was right, but that what I was reading just wasn't Christian Science. I had to stop reading the Monitor for the same reason. I thank God that I was led to, Plainfield Church and Mrs. Evans. Had the right sense of the simplicity and the power of this science.
Practical.
Exactly. If something sounds and feels complicated, it's the human mind in full bloom. But that's the best that there is to it. It is damned, because it's not of God.
I remember always slavishly reading the Sentinels and Journals, and especially the journals. I would always think to myself, I hope one day I'll be spiritual enough to understand what I'm reading. And it was always like this separation of, I'm reading this, but I'm not spiritual enough or good enough to understand it. So maybe one day I'll get there. And that's sort of like this perpetual state of, I just don't know enough about Christian Science to understand it. And that's what was so refreshing about Mrs. Evans' teaching, is she just was like, she was so direct and simple, and it was a breath of fresh air. It was amazing.
And it healed.
Yeah.
That can be true of testimonies too, where people sound so pompous and quote and carry on, and you think, gee, I will never be as great as they are, and that's just terrible. That's just that is the money changers that have to be rooted out of the temple, because that's the human mind in full bloom.
And it is wickedness,
in high places.
Pure wickedness in high places. For that wickedness to make you feel that way, it is wicked. I remember going through Sunday school, through branch churches, and feeling guilty. Not knowing why. That's the wickedness of the human mind.
To answer this question about how do you get an understanding, you simply ask God. You read a verse and you ask God, what does that mean? What does that mean to me? How can I apply it during my day-to-day? That's how we should read the lessons. That's how we should live our life. God interprets. What is it? Mind is the great interpreter. It's his own interpreter. And many go by that and never read anything else. I sometimes do like to delve into things. But God reveals to you all you need to know, that's for sure.
I like the second citation this week about out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice, that he might instruct thee. And it just really was very helpful that he's telling us that we just need to listen.
Thank you.
That has to be true, because for those who can't even read, I'm sure he's talking to them too. And if you're there, yeah, I mean, if their thought is humble enough, I'm sure they're hearing him too, and he's directing their life.
It certainly is. And,
Yeah.
and the simplest child can get it. He's speaking to all of us. Keep it simple, stupid.
Ears shall hear a word behind thee saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. That is your spiritual sense.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.